All right, so we are live. Let me also quickly make an announcement on Discord. Just a second. Okay. All right, perfect. So you should be good to go. Again, so welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining our 13th edition of the Open Source Meetup around pieces open source. And very good to see already quite a few folks already joining in. So if everyone wants to introduce themselves, just say hi in the YouTube chat, or if you're joining in on Twitter, LinkedIn. I know we are streaming on a bunch of platforms, so feel free to say hi and share where you're joining in from. So if you don't know me, I'm Shivaya, I'm a developer advocate, and of course Jim, who is I'm probably Jim. If you want to do a quick introduction of yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jim. I'm head of developer advocacy at Pieces. I'm based on probably the opposite side of the world from you, aren't I?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm currently West Coast US, where it is, what is it, 4 minutes past 8 in the morning, and you're literally 12 hours away.
12 hours.
Literally,
exactly.
You couldn't be further away from me if you tried. So, yeah, whereabouts in the world are you?
I'm right now in India, in New Delhi, where I'm originally from. So 12 and a half hours exact difference. So for me, it's 8:30 p.m. right now.
So much more civilized, This is why I'm mainlining the coffee. So I guess, folks who are watching this, where in the world are you? Good to know where you are. Are you like me, mainlining coffee to stay awake first thing in the morning, or are you like Shivay, where you're trying to stay awake for the evening? So drop in the chat.
For the
say
evening.
hello.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think, and I saw like there was some confusion earlier, because usually I know the meetup is usually at 12 p.m. Eastern time, but today we had to do it at 11. But hopefully, like if you have some friends who typically join this meetup, do let them know that we are conducting this a bit earlier than usual. So sorry for that inconvenience, if that must have caused a thing. But yes, I think we can probably start off. So I know like we have been doing a tons of stuff, especially just in the last 1 month, with respect to our open source SDKs and with respect to our documentation. And in fact, like I feel last 1 month was one of our biggest push in terms of getting stuff out, especially on the side of our SDKs. So just to kind of summarize, we launched our wrapper SDK for our Python SDK. So essentially, the wrapper, and probably I can add Jim's. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So
I don't have the Python one up. Let me bring up the Python one.
Oh, sure, absolutely. No, I knew, like, since you're sharing a screen. So the main reason behind building this wrapper SDK was that we saw that as we were conducting a lot of different events, especially for MLH. So we partnered with MLH for their Global Hack Week for AIML, and a lot of students were trying to build projects using our SDK. And there is this common consensus that yes, if you are a developer, our documentation was perhaps not the most ideal when it came to using our native SDK. So our team, led by Bishoy, who is one of our integration engineers, so he built this entire and together with Mason, the head of open source, and Jim, together all of we kind of collaborate together to build this wrapper, which essentially and probably, I mean, Jim, if you want to add to this, that it adds a layer of a lot of the abstractions that you might have to try to understand that how assets work. It reduces that complexity, and it provides you these functions where you can just like create an asset. So you just use create asset function, and it will just create that as asset for you. So that underlying logic of, first of all, defining your API client, then defining your applications, and all of those underlying pre-configuration that you might have to do if you're using the native SDK. It reduces all that complexity, and it just provides you ready-to-use functions that you can leverage. And I here are some of the examples for, let's say, creating an asset where you just import the pieces client, and you just simply have this pieces client dot create asset function, and boom, it's that simple. Probably, Jim, if you want to add something else more to that.
Yeah, I think we said the original SDK is very complicated, so that's why we created the wrapper. The reason the original SDK is very complicated is because obviously we built that for us. So it's a wrapper around the API of Pieces OS. So for those who aren't quite familiar with the internals of Pieces, we have this thing called Pieces OS that runs all the time, and this was the bit that manages all your code snippets, your Copilot chats, everything. And then whether you use the desktop app or an extension inside your IDE of choice, they all talk to Pieces OS. So this is how you can start a chat in the desktop app, continue it in the browser, finish it off in your IDE. And so we have an API that sits as part of Pieces OS that you can call, that we call from all of our different components. And that's a very complicated API because we are building a lot of complicated stuff. So it's intentionally complicated for our use. It's a very, very good API for what we're using it for internally. But obviously that makes it overly complicated for a lot of the use cases for folks who want to just build their own applications, which is why we built this wrapper. It's a case of, we took what we need and then we've tried to make it what you need as someone building that. So that's why we've tried to think about what are the standard use cases that an open source person is going to have building against Pieces OS, which is, I want to create an asset, I want to manage my assets, I want to ask my Copilot a question and maybe add some of the assets to the question, things like that. So we try to simplify those use cases. So that's kind of the whole purpose of behind this wrapper. And I think it's kind of fair to say we're trying to make this as optimal as possible for you as an end user. So we'd love your feedback. I did drop a link in the chat to the GitHub repo where this lives. So feel free to jump in there, raise some issues. I see we've got a few issues already. I think these are all the internal ones we've been raising. But yeah, if you've got thoughts on how this would be easier for you to use, if there's features that we haven't exposed yet, or ways we could simplify this, or that align close with your use cases, dive in there, start a discussion with us. We'd love to kind of get your feedback to make this as easy for you to use as possible.
I'm not sure if probably showcase a quick demo. I know he'll be probably showing it for the C# one. If he has sample this important examples that we have in our docs.
I mean, we can fire up VS Code and plus play with the Python if you want.
Exactly, yeah.
So you keep cutting out.
Apart from making. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you keep cutting out. The fun of internet on live streams. Sorry, do you want to just say all that again?
Better?
Now you're frozen.
It's a bit strange.
Okay, you're kind of dipping in and out. Should I do a demo of the Python one? Should we just fire up VS Code and just start playing with Python and see what comes up?
Yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, let's just bring up a new VS Code window. Let's just that one. I thought I just brought up code. Raycast. Stop being annoying. New window. There we go. Raycast was being annoying. Okay, so let's just create a thingy. And then, right, so I'm just going to create a Python virtual environment. And because I have a Python file open, Visual Studio Code. Oh, cool. Yeah, let's pick the right one. Let's re-enter the terminal. There we go. So let's go to the PyPy package. So we've got some loads of examples here in the PyPy package. I did drop a link to this in the chat. So all the code's here. So let's install this. And then what should we do? Let's do a Copilot chat. So I'm going to just save this to pieces. Go back over here. This is the one, isn't it? So let's bring up my app.py and then insert that. Come on, insert cursor. This is the fun of working for a company like Pieces, is we get to use all the beta versions, which means we get to see all the bugs.
All the beta versions.
Yeah, the bugs in the beta versions. Okay, why are you not inserting a cursor? Insert cursor. Oh, there we go. There we go. Just need to refresh. Okay, so what have I got here? I'm importing the Pieces client. It's from the PiecesOS client.wrapper. I'll actually bring this up in the VM. We've kind of taken the existing Pieces client. It's all there. So the internal one that we can use that wraps the entire API is there. But we've got this wrapper that's also inside the same package, which is why you go for PiecesOS client.wrapper. We then create a Pieces client. We've got a question here, and then we're streaming the question. So there's kind of two ways you can interact with the Copilot. You can either send it a question, wait for it to get an answer, and then it dumps the whole thing back at you when we kind of manage the token stream internally, or we can actually stream a question back. So we have it's an async iterable, and we just loop through it, and as each token comes back, we dump that token out. Do what everyone with the concept, dump the token out of the console. So that's what we're doing here. We're just calling the stream question method. So the idea is it's one call. You don't have to set anything up. You don't have to manage the WebSocket infrastructure that we do behind the scenes so we can make things work the way we want to make it work. Instead, it's wrapped up. We call stream question, and then it just goes through, dump that out. So you know what? If I just run this, Python.py. Got my desk arranged badly at the moment, so I can't actually see what I'm typing. So much going on.
I think you typed one additional.
Oh, I typed one. Yeah. So I've got an iPad. So I've got my screen in front of me. I've got an iPad below, which has got the StreamYard session for the live stream, so that I'm not kind of peering around all over the place looking for it. And of course, by doing that, I can't see the bottom of my terminal. So let me just move that out of the way. Python. There you go. So you can see the answers to streaming back. So similar to what we would get when you talk to any kind of chat tool. Yeah, as Emily says, too many P's, far too many P's. So yeah. There we go. Oh. Found a bug.
A bug on the live stream.
Found a bug. This is the great thing about live streams. They're great for catching bugs.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a good open source citizen. I'm going to go here.
Load that in.
I'm going to raise a bug. So why am I hiding that view? Oh, I showed toolbar full screen. There we go. Right. So issues, new issue, bug reports. We've got some nice templates here, which is pretty cool. Add a title. Let's do bug error when running the Copilot sample. I can't type sample from PyPy. Bug description. I am running the Copilot sample from PyPy. I can't type. Literally copied and oh my god, I literally cannot type today. It's too early in the morning. I literally copied and pasted the sample, ran it, and I got this
error.
Error.
I'm sorry we had to keep this early, Jim. Normally we keep it a bit more better for your time, and that too on a Saturday.
To be fair, it's my fault we're slightly earlier, so
yeah,
I deserve this. Right. So let's take that, and we go. Code sample is from and let's just copy that. There we go. Right, steps to reproduce. 1. Create a new Python bin and install pieces OS client. Create a new Python file and add the code from the sample. I won't actually drop the code in here. Run the code, you get an answer, then this exception is thrown.
I think this is a great tutorial for anyone who wants to create descriptive issues, because we see so many times that in order to just quickly share your error, you'll not give proper description, and then you end up wasting time on having back and forth discussion in order to try to get those descriptions in. And that's like, our team spent time in order to have a proper template as well, when we want to capture as much as information as possible to just reduce that time and back and forth, just get to to the nitty-gritties of what exactly might be causing that particular error. So thanks for sharing this entire tutorial, Jim, and how you always make such an earnest effort of making such descriptive issues.
Oh yeah, there is. What I really appreciate it, like with my projects, when people raise bugs, it's great that people have done it. Sometimes it don't work is fundamentally frustrating because I can't fix it. I need to know what doesn't work. The more information you give me, the easier it is to fix it. So yeah, you need those clear, concise steps. Pieces OS version, let's grab that. 10.16, 10.1.6. Additional info. I think we've got the information here, haven't we?
Yeah, pretty much.
Python version. I would update this bug report actually, because I ran Python -v with a lowercase v. I don't know if you noticed. If I do that, Python -v, you get all this garbage, and then you're stuck inside the Python interpreter.
Yeah.
So it's Python -V or Python -- version. So I'd probably update that to -- version.
Probably that as well. Yeah.
There we go. So let's submit this new issue. Cool. And then I'm going to do another new issue. I'm going to do a feature request. Update bug report to suggest Python - version. In the bug report, we ask for the user's Python. I can't type. Python version, and give the hint Python -v. This is potentially confusing, as if you run Python -v, it's lowercase, you get weird things happening and end up in the interpreter. To avoid confusion, we should change this to Python - version. There we go. 2 bugs raised. Absolutely crushing it. So ignoring that bug, I wonder if it's in the pieces client.close. Let's just run this again. Let's do a little bit of live debugging.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's not that. It's not that. That was line 9, so it is where it's streaming.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And conversation not found.
Could it be like pertaining specifically to that specific endpoint? Because I know there are two different ways in which we interact with the Copilot conversations. One is that, yes, you create a new Copilot conversation and then you add a message to it. But sometimes you have this ask question, which, I mean, internally it generates the conversation for you, and you just generate the response only, like the ask question endpoint.
I need to dig into this. I haven't dug into this level of code.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, spelling mistake. Yeah. So sorry, just a complete sidetrack, complete top tip for everyone. I'm going to describe one of my favorite extensions. This is one of my favorite Visual Studio Code extensions, and I'm going to just copy a link to that. I'm going to drop it in the chat. Wow, that's put a lot of information in the chat there. The code spell checker. The code spell checker. Top tip, because that should be existence.
Yes.
So, yeah. We should probably. Oh, this is an internal method. It's an internal method, so that's fine.
Hello.
Hey, Mason. So yeah, code spell checker. That is my extension of choice. Great for catching spelling errors. So yeah, so that's a quick demo of the Pieces Python SDK.
Yeah. And just to also touch upon the SDK itself, like how we have made the improvements to the actual user experience of using the SDK. There has been a great push thanks to Mason and our community. One of our folks in the community, Richard, who was a technical writer at AppWrite, and he helped really create really solid documentation on how to get started with the Wrapper SDK. I'll just make sure to also share the link for that. So it should now make it much more easier for anyone to get started using the SDK. So hopefully, if anyone is trying to use our Python SDK, then it should be much easier. I would love to hear everyone's feedback from that as well.
Yeah, there was a ton of awesome collaboration between everyone in this call, and Bishoy, who's a really great engineer at Pieces as well. Just absolutely cranking out some new SDKs, and I know Jim got into it on the C#, which we're excited about. Even more on the way in the future.
So should we dive into the C# one as we're talking SDKs?
Yeah, we can.
Let's talk C#.
Won't be able to stick around for too long. Unfortunately, I got to pop in, pop out, but I definitely did want to say hey, and let's check this C# out. I haven't seen it at all.
What do you want to talk? If you're only popping in, popping out, is there anything you want to tease folks about? Anything you want to talk about before we look at C# there?
Yeah. I mean, we can. I'll briefly mention we're on the hunt for the next plugin for Pieces. We think we have it narrowed down to Xcode, which will be super exciting. I know a ton of iOS, macOS, Apple ecosystem developers. I was just talking to Dan O'Leary, who was actually part of our social partner program, and he actually ran a poll, which I thought was super interesting. I'll post a link to it. I was talking to him over Twitter about just like extensions and how he uses Xcode, and he ran a poll on his account, and I can post the link to it, but it was super interesting because let me copy this and paste it into here. So there's the link to the post, and you can all pull that up. But yeah, he made a poll essentially on how many people that use Xcode actually use extensions, and it was like overwhelming. There's like 36, almost 40 votes on it now, which is pretty decent. and 83% do not use extensions at all. And it's very, very interesting how different it is when you look at something like VS Code or JetBrains. When I get into JetBrains or VS Code, the extensions are the first things that I download, and there's tons of great extensions. They're right on the App Store. Some of them you have to install via Brew or Homebrew or whatever. But yeah, just super interesting getting into this world because I really haven't touched Xcode that much. So just a quick side note on that. But yeah, Xcode, it'll be completely open source, and we're actually looking into, you may find it while you're researching here, Jim. It's called Copilot for Xcode. It's actually right there. Yeah. That'll probably use the same repo that we're going to use. But essentially, there's this one maintainer who built Copilot for Xcode, and Codium has their product in there. GitHub has their product in there, or GitHub Copilot, as well as ChatGPT. Yeah, that's it. And so we will be the next addition to this, alongside GitHub Copilot, Codium, ChatGPT. We will have pieces. We'll have all of our embedded Copilot, the web view, everything, and it'll be already in the hands of tons of people as well. So really great collaboration there. And I've been talking to the maintainer, and super, super great person. So excited about it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's gonna be really, really cool because yeah, I'm not an Xcode person anymore. I used to be. I used to do Objective-C development. I don't know if anyone remembers that. I once made about $300 off the iOS App Store. And Xcode, definitely clunky. Definitely not the easiest IDE to use. That's quite nice when I went to Xamarin, because I would end up doing everything inside Visual Studio and then only having to dip into Xcode every now and again to do storyboards or a few other bits and pieces.
For me, like Xcode has only been to compile my application. So I had a React app, and I would convert it into Android and into iOS using Capacitor. And the only need was to build my iOS project. Unfortunately, I didn't like using.
Yeah, you just needed Xcode installed. Yeah, I've used Capacitor for a few things. It's pretty good. Except when you do use Capacitor, you can't have any like APIs. You have to have you can't have it nested in the same project. So it has to be external, which I ran into a few times. But yeah,
that is like one of the things I missed about in-app notifications. Those will not just simply get supported with Capacitor or your PWAs, unfortunately. But I mean, like in the previous startup that I was working, we didn't have budget for an iOS developer. So we had to rely on the cross functionality.
That's why you use Flutter.
Yeah.
You get native, every OS, and mobile, and web app all in one. And you just got to jump through a few hoops while you're building your application. But other than that, it's a pretty smooth process. But yeah, Xcode's coming up next as far as it looks right now. So be on the lookout for that, in the next month or so.
Cool. Yeah, that is very exciting. So Yash Pal asked the question, can I contribute to AI/ML projects? Yeah, you want to contribute to any of the Pieces SDKs and some of our Pieces plugins are actually open source. I'm going to open up a private window so that I'm not logged into GitHub. I say that, and there we go. So if you actually look at the Pieces GitHub repository, I'll just drop a link to that in the chat. You'll see we have a number of public repositories. So things like plugin NeoVim, plugin Xcode. That's appeared. Plugin Sublime. We've got our client SDKs. Obsidian. It's open source.
It will be fully open source, but we have to have our compiled code into an open source repo. The actual plugin Obsidian is not currently, but it will be. The actual source code is not.
So there's a few things in here. We've got open source. So if you want to contribute to any of our plugins, the format is plugin_thing. So if you want to have a look at some of those, go check them out. It's all in Pieces. And then you ask, where can I get mentors on Discord? We do have a Pieces Discord. The link is in the chat there as well. So jump on our Discord, ask questions. We're here to help.
Yeah, and our CLI too. CLI is a great place to jump
Yes.
in, and CLI agent, yeah, and you can add really helpful commands pretty easily there. Maybe you add a bit more around help style commands, which are always useful, and we should have some issues on that, hopefully.
Let's drop a link to that in the chat. And oh, spotted a bug. That image there. I'm guessing.
Where do we think that leads?
That probably leads to a private repository.
Uses something.
That's probably in a private repository, that one. Bad signature. If I go and bring it up in this over here where I've got access to, still bad signature. There we go.
Yeah, it could be that there's a expired token in the actual URL there.
Okay.
But yeah, good issue there. But yeah, there's tons of issues there. You can jump in and claim one and go at it. If you're Python, we have stuff in TypeScript as well.
And just a quick kind of note that if you're in the TypeScript land, a few of the contributors for pieces, including Richard, and then I know a couple of others, we are planning on building like essentially like a playground where you can try out the different API endpoints and see what kind of response that generates. So if you're learning about what are assets and how do you manage your assets, what is each of the endpoints around this actually, and how does it actually work? So if you're interested in joining that, there's a planning document that we've already shared in the chat section of the Discord server, which is primarily the place for discussing anything related to open source. So feel free to drop by and you can be a part of that conversation around building with our SDKs. And probably, I know, like I had discussed this internally with you, Mason, but if anyone is interested in perhaps contributing to wrapper SDKs like we have for Python, but in other SDKs in TypeScript, feel free to drop by in our Discord server. I think like, the team will be more than happy to kind of discuss that. And we have some active developers in the entire community. So if you want to contribute to that as well, I think like that's a great improvement that we can make across all of our SDKs.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And sometimes you can contribute to SDKs just simply by finding bugs. Like I've just raised an issue here with that image being broken.
Yep.
All these little things. If you find something, just raise an issue. That can be very helpful as well. Obviously, if you want to fix the issue, cool. We love it. But yeah, go in there and contribute.
I think those are great ways to just get in. Super low barrier to entry, great way to get involved. And then, more and more we start seeing people's names. And obviously, we mention people all the time and we send people stuff and definitely support the people that are contributing and supporting our open source efforts. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Okay, we've just been sent so that spelling mistake I just pointed out?
An underscore ID, yeah, it's a private variable. Yeah.
There we go. So we've got what it looks like what we've got here is this fixes the spelling mistake. Cool. I'm going to serve you that one. Nice. Oh no, because I missed out that part there. That's viewed. That's fine. It's a spelling mistake. So this is the fix. I'm guessing this here is the fix for the conversation error.
Yeah. Can you look at some of the other code in there, like the blue? Click the blue arrows. Yeah. I don't know where that underscore ID would be found, but it's probably in the chat class.
It's the chat, which is an option on basic chat. So if I go to basic chat, let's navigate to that basic chat. So it has the ID.
And then is there if you scroll down a little bit more.
Not seeing a private underscore ID. So if I go back to here, it's changed to underscore ID.
Yep.
I don't think that exists.
It could. Yeah, I don't know if Python automatically does that or not.
It might be is it in the
basic? Yeah, could be.
That's basic. Yep, there's the ID.
There it is, underscore. Yep.
Okay, so there's this ID, which is the internal ID. And then at the chat, This is a conversation ID. So okay, so I see the confusion here. So we're using the ID rather than the ID, which is conversation ID, rather than underscore ID, which is the chat ID, is internal representation. So
yes. Yeah, we need the higher level ID there. Yeah. So that's
okay. So if I go to here, I think that's good. Then I think that's the right answer. Now, what would be really nice is a unit test for this. So maybe what we can do is I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna approve this because I think this is right. But I'm gonna put a note in here. We should build up unit tests for this. Can you raise an issue to do so, please? So I'm going to add that comment there. I'm going to approve this.
Like unit testing properties of objects.
Well, just the fact that this code is broken.
Yeah.
So is there a way we can test the flow? Because the issue was if I call Copilot chat and do something, it barfs at the end.
Yeah.
So can we have a unit test where I call the entry method the Copilot chat?
Can you take a look at that? There should be a test file in that PR. I want to know what that test.
The test file, yeah, that. This all this test file does they just fix the spelling. But this is a test that's checking a private method. Now, I have opinions. We should not be testing our privates. The whole point of it being private is it's abstracted away. We should only be testing the public interface. And if anything's private like this, we shouldn't really be testing it. We should be, because that's implementation detail, and that means our tests break as soon as we change our internal implementation. So,
yep.
But that's a bigger conversation.
Yeah,
it's a bigger conversation. So.
Yeah, but we could in that same test file, I think you could just test all the properties, print them out or something like that. Yeah. Already. Yeah. But
cool. There we go. So not only are we finding bugs, we're raising issues. We're getting them fixed. All the while we're doing this.
Perfect example of live stream.
Yes. Yeah. So I want to take a question from the chat here. Upper says, I hope you guys are working on building Copilot support for remote connections. Saying I'm unable to use Copilot while remote into cloud or local VM connection using SSH. Not entirely 100% sure what you mean there. If you're referring to things like, I want to connect to a remote Pieces OS instance from inside Visual Studio, open settings UI, search for Pieces.
Yeah, right there.
Custom URL. So I can have Pieces OS running on one machine and access it from an extension from another machine. So we have that capability. So if that's what you're talking about, done, delivered, yay!
I think, I was talking to before about that. Forget what exactly we're talking about. It could have been with the Copilot applet, because even if you use that custom URL and your Pieces OS is on another server, you will not be able to access the Copilot rendered web view because it's on another port. And so we were thinking about coupling that Copilot inside this. It's like localhost 1000/apps/Copilot, and then that would be where it lives instead of this other port. We're still working on it, but as far as you can plug in a custom URL there, and for the most part, possibly. It for the most part it'll work for everything besides that.
Okay.
Proxy address, but it's kind of buggy. Yeah, and we can talk about this in Discord too, and get a bit more specifics. But it should somewhat work, at least right now. But yeah, we're still working on that.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. What are we? 40 minutes in. Should we play some C#? Because I know Ellie was saying earlier on that she's itching to see the C#.
Yes, and I do have to run, but I do want to watch this, so I'm going to rewatch this afterwards. But appreciate it. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Shivay. And best of luck with the C# demo.
Yep.
Cool. Thanks, Mason.
All right. Cool. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Right. Let's do some C#. So anyone who knows me knows I'm a bit of a C# person. So let's get rid of all this Python stuff. Yeah, I am a bit of a C# person. So if anyone else who's watching, if you're a C# person, jump in the chat and let me know. I know Ellie is big on C#. I actually first started doing C# back in 2004, I think. C# 1.1, before they had generics. So I've been doing C# for ages, and I've kind of been desperate to get a C# SDK. So same idea as the Python wrapper, except it's in C#. Literally as simple as that. So it's currently in an early beta. I'm going to just drop a link to it in the chat, the NuGet package. Oh, that says C# MVP. I used to be a Microsoft MVP for Xamarin, which was C# for cross-platform mobile app development. So yes, I have been a C# MVP, a Xamarin MVP, a Microsoft MVP. I've even written a book on C#. I actually wrote a book on using Xamarin for mobile application development. So I wouldn't say I wrote the book on it, but I've written a book on it, which is pretty cool. I will drop a link to the book, but it's completely out of date. Xamarin's not supported any longer. So despite the fact people keep buying it, I wouldn't recommend it. So this is our NuGet package. It's all open source as usual. I'm going to drop a link to the GitHub repo in the chat as well. This is an early beta. The idea is we want to get this out there for people to have a play, do things with it. But essentially, we've got similar kind of functionality to the Python SDK. So we've got Copilot chats, we've got asset management, different LLMs, all that kind of stuff. It's all there. And again, you can work with a Pieces OS instance running locally, or you can access one that's running remotely as well. So documentation, very much not complete. Yeah, this is an early beta for folks to kind of get their hands on and go with it. But we do have inside the project, we do have some example code inside here. So you know what? I'm actually going to go do this in VS Code and kind of play with some of the examples. So the structure of it, we have this core project here. This is the one that we generate from our API. So like I was saying with the Python SDK, we have the core SDK that wraps the API that we use internally, and then we have the wrapper around it. So the core projects, that is our internal automatically generated C# SDK from our API, and then the client, this is the important wrapper. This is the bit we care about. So all the code's in here. You can have a nose at it, have a look at it, see how it works. It's all based off essentially WebSockets. We have a WebSocket connection that sits there permanently, and we use that to stream the Copilot chats back and forward and interact with bits and pieces. Yeah, we've got some assets code here for managing different assets. So at the moment, we've only got the ability to create and get assets. We need more functionality in there, but we've got asset functionality. Got the Copilot stuff in here. So when you interact with the Copilot, you can create chats, you can add assets to it if you want to, you can select a different model, and we have live context support. So that's something cool that we've got in our C# SDK. Not yet in our Python SDK, but it's in our C# SDK is the live context support.
As far as I understand, it's mainly a difference in the pipeline. So we have these contextualized pipelines which differ based on what kind of tasks you want to do. Mm-hmm. You'll have like a code pipeline, or you might have some of the, I'm not completely sure of what are the total number, but then you have this live context pipeline as well.
Basically, yes. Yeah, so if you want to just dive into how the sausage is made a little bit, when we have our Copilot, when we create a conversation, where are we? When we create a chat, if we're using live context, we use a different pipeline. So internally, we have these pipelines that model how we go through the flow in our different ML subsystems to get all the right context together to send to the LLM. When we're using live context, we have a QGPT conversation pipeline for contextualized code workstream dialogue. And then if we're not using live context, we have a conversation pipeline for generalized code dialogue. So it's different pipelines internally that we use. And then when we actually send the chat, which is, I think, in Copilot chat in here, we have some code to, when we actually build the question, we then, if we're using the live context, we have to provide a temporal context. So essentially we provide this, it's called a temporal range grounding internally. But what we do is we register a period of time with pieces and say, this is the time window. So that goes into our pipeline. So as we go through the pipeline, it knows that it needs to include context from a time window that you specify inside that conversation. So it's the pipeline, and then it's this temporal range grounding. So that's all the magic way of saying I can use this Copilot to ask questions about what I'm talking about.
And yeah, I think temporal timestamp, the temporal grounding is pretty much like to ask questions. What was I doing 10 minutes ago? What was I doing 1 hour ago? So it can and find the relevant context from that timestamp. Based, like, because we are also like capturing not only the information but also the timestamp at which you did that information.
Yes. Yeah. So we actually pass in a time span when we ask the question. If I go to my Copilot chat, when I ask a question, I can actually pass in a time span. At the moment, I've only got it just with a time span that goes back from now. So you can specify a time span of, say, 1 hour, and that will just use the context window of now going back an hour. Maybe we should change this so we can actually say just use yesterday, just yesterday, nothing from today, things like that. So maybe that's an enhancement we could make. But yeah, at the moment it's just based, yeah, you have this time window and it only looks inside that time window.
This is amazing, Jim, because I think like this is the first time that we have publicly shown how you use live context inside the SDK. So, I mean, huge kudos to you like for sharing this. I think we should like definitely cut down this into anyways like a smaller video around you sharing about the C# SDK, but this is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this.
Yeah, we should. It's a big idea actually. Create a series of videos where we just dive into the into the internal special source for this. But yeah, so one thing with C#, everything is available via interface. So for any C, if you're watching and you're a C# dev, jump in the chat and tell me. I want to know who's our C# crew in the house. But we have a lot of interfaces everywhere. So if you use dependency injection, if you want to mock any of this out, you can. So it's all done through interface, which is cool. You may notice we have the horrible configure await false everywhere. So try to be a good citizen. So C#, the way async and await works with C# is it's very, very powerful, but leads to very verbose code. So when you say await, what that does is that will then run whatever it needs to do. And then when it comes back from the await, it'll always come back to exactly the same thread that you launched from, which is great if you're doing UI code because you have to do that on the UI thread. But for a lot of times, you don't care. I mean, when I, for example, create this Copilot, I don't care if the continuation happens on the same thread or not. It actually doesn't matter. So this configure await false says, I don't care what thread I'm on. So we end up potentially zipping between different threads, which makes the code much more optimal as it uses the different threads that are available, but you end up with configure await false absolutely everywhere. So for those who are new to C#, this means I don't care what thread you're on, but that we are using when we come back out of the await statement, which is totally fine for anything that's not UI programming. But if you on the UI thread, you just don't put this in place. Anywhere else, you leave this in place. So it's kind of makes it more efficient, but you end up with all this code everywhere. And I've got a whole lot of examples here. So you know what? Let's take this example here. This is a very simple example. I'm going to go into CD /example, and then let's just do a .NET run on this. And this is going to just list out all the models that we've got. And there you go. These are the models that we have available in Pieces OS. We've got Claude 3 Opus, Cloud model. We've got Gemma 1.1, which is an on-device model, and I've downloaded it. So there's not only tell me what models I've got available, but even whether they're a cloud model or if they're an on-device model, have they been downloaded? So we have that information there. And we can also download models. So if I wanted to download a model that I don't have, I've got the capability to download that. So kind of got this on device, off device. If you want to build something that runs completely on device, it's all you can do that. So let's create a chat and ask a question. So what I'm doing here, I've got my Copilot. Actually, let's talk the code a bit. I create my pieces client. This is my pieces client. I can then get the Copilot, and this returns an iPieces Copilot object. And then from here, I can just create a chat. This will actually build me a conversation. And then once I've got this chat, I can then keep asking questions of the same chat. So in this case, I'm just creating a question, and then I'm just asking that question and then getting the response. And this is going to do a full dump out of text rather than streaming. So give this a second. This is going to go off and do its thing. You notice I've got logging going on here. So we support the standard logging frameworks. So if you're using Microsoft Extensions logging, iLogger is all supported, which is cool. And there we go. This has just dumped out all the text to answer my question. It's all well and good. Let's get a bit more fancy. We can do streaming responses. So we support an async awaiter. So if I ask a streaming question, it returns an async enumerable. So again, like we had in Python, where we were just looping through, returning that, I can do the same thing for in C#. So I can either do. We've got two versions of the call. One just gives you everything in one go, or this one you've just seen here, you get the streaming asynchronous one coming out. Live context again, same kind of thing. Create chat async. This time I pass in the live context flag. Now you know what? I'm just gonna scroll through StreamYard chat. And then I'm going to change this question to be describe Ellie's comments in the StreamYard chat I was just reading in my browser. And then if this works, didn't find Ellie, but did find Esther White, who made comments regarding use of pieces and other topics. Live context is maybe it's picking up a different chat. I'm not entirely sure what live context is picking up there, but let's try live context over here. Let's go to here. Let's just read about the pieces CLI. So I'm not sure who Esther White is and where I was talking to her. So let's just do this in the CLI instead. Pieces CLI. Describe what I was just reading in my Edge. I can't type. Browser about the pieces CLI. Let's see what this comes up with. There we go. You were reading about the pieces Python CLI tool on your Edge browser. Here are the key points. So there you go. Live context working from my C# app and only a few lines of code. Literally just use live context true.
That is incredible.
And then let me just undo all this and comment this out. And then, yeah, one thing like assets, for example, if I wanted to create an asset and use it in the Copilot chat, so I've got a bit of code here. So to find a string, just got some C# code. I then use the assets API called create asset, give it the asset, and then I create a chat, I pass in the assets ID of the asset ID, and then ask a question. So if I run this will do its thing. And there we go. The C# program, simple concept application, and then here's a breakdown. So I'm going to pass an asset in, ask questions about it. And if I actually now go to C# concept greeting user a moment ago, that's the asset I just created. And you see it's already been augmented by Pieces OS. So that's how I can create an asset as well. And then, more examples in here. It's all available in the repo. For example, if I want to change the model, I can get all the models. In this case, I've got Claude or GPT-4o. Depending which one I want, I can choose a different one. So when I create my chat, I specify the model for my chat. So at the moment, I've got it set to change the model to specify the conversation level. Possible enhancement is to actually do it as a at a chat level, so you actually change model mid-conversation. So I need to potentially look into that. But yeah, they have that. If you want to download a model, for example, we do have the ability to do that. So if a model is not downloaded, we can then call download model. So that way, if you've got an offline model, I'll show this in action. Let me go to my models, go to my Copilot chats, GPT-4o on device. Llama 3, let's just delete that. Don't have it now. This is gonna it's gonna either download Llama 3 or Phi. So let's just delete both of those just in case. Delete that. Delete that. Run this code. It's now downloading a model. So the model is downloading. You'll see, there we go. It's now downloading Llama.
Wow, that's incredible.
So pretty cool. So if you need to access the model,
method, was this method, Jim, like, was it actually supported in the native OpenAI spec, or did we specifically add this to the C# SDK?
No, it was available. So if I go to the implementation of here, so in our model API, we have a model-specific model download that's available to us. So this is it's in our API, and so it's available in our wrapper. We just literally call this our model API. We give it the model ID, and then it will download, and then we just keep polling to see whether it's downloaded or not, and then
That's amazing.
So it's pretty cool. So we've got all this capability. So this is you see it's downloading. There we go. We're 8% complete. So when it finishes, the example will carry on and then actually ask a question. So yeah, pretty cool. So that's the C# SDK. As I say, there's the example project in here. So under source example, there we have the example code you can run. The documentation is very, very light. I have got some auto-generated docs in there. If you want to run the docfx to generate documentation, you can. I've tried to make sure that we've got all the doc style comments everywhere, but things like the README, we don't have examples on the README. So if anyone wants to contribute to this, we can start putting some of these examples on the README and just kind of slowly padding out the internal documentation. At the moment, so it's on NuGet. I still haven't set up the automatic deploy to NuGet yet. That's something I need to work on. Got to do a few stuff with keys, keeping keys secret. So at some point, I will get this automatically deploying whenever we do a release. So yeah, that is the C# SDK. So Ellie, would love to know your thoughts. Love to get you to play with it, see what you can build with it.
I'll definitely try to learn about the C# because I haven't personally ever worked with C#, but this definitely seems really interesting. So thanks for sharing this stuff. We're really, really excited for this. And I also see Richard in the chat.
Yeah, C# is, I would say it's probably one of the best, if not the best, developer ecosystem out there. There's a lot of people like, oh, C#, it's Microsoft, it's enterprise, it's Windows only, it's boring. And that's utter rubbish. It's cross-platform. This is me running it on my Mac. I run it on Linux on my Raspberry Pi. Runs on Windows. It's open source. It's run by a foundation, which is as independent as possible for a foundation where the main people who run it work for Microsoft. So not entirely independent, but the ecosystem is phenomenal. So literally there's nothing you cannot build with C#, whether it's web apps, desktop apps, mobile apps, embedded apps. I don't think there's an ecosystem out there that's as powerful. The documentation is phenomenal. The package manager is phenomenal. I mean, package manager UI is not so great, but the actual package manager itself is brilliant. There's so much you can do with it, and it's yes, it's verbose, but it's got a lot of functional programming ideas. Everything's based on the .NET ecosystem. So if you want, a hardcore functional programming person, use F#. You're still using the same ecosystem, the same libraries, the same everything. So yeah, it's probably the best developer ecosystem out there, bar none. Yes, it's not cool, but it's really powerful.
What are the cool kids?
So many people using it. Yeah, cool kids need to learn C# because there are. I know. I was chatting to Ellie about this, and she was saying that when she was learning C#, she got a lot of advice. There's no C# jobs. You shouldn't be learning C#. So, no, there is. It's probably one of the most popular languages out there. Yes, JavaScript gets used a lot because of web stuff, but C# is stupidly popular. I mean, every time we go to a conference, the number of people we speak to, and they say, yeah, we're a C# shop. Yeah, if they're building web apps, they use JavaScript as well, but in general, C# is one of the most popular ones out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so many
enterprise. And I know like so many enterprise developers are primarily focusing on either Java or .NET. It's usually between the tussle between them. Like if you're building larger scalable applications.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it used to be Java for the back end, .NET for the front end. That was the standard. When I was working in the banking industry, that was the standard. If you're a Java developer, you did back end systems, C#, you did front end. And then C# started spreading to the back end, mainly because Java is terrible at front end. But no, the ecosystems for C# both front and back end are just phenomenal.
Absolutely.
So,
and I see, sorry.
I was going to say, Choir241 says, seems like I'm late to the party.
That's Richard.
What did I miss? Richard, you missed the C# SDK. It is awesome. You missed it, but don't worry. We've got you covered. I will send you a link to the NuGet package. Where are we? I'll drop it back in the chat. And you can always catch the recording. So there we go. Go become a C# developer. It's the best.
Yep. I know, like the community, especially Ellie and them. Like I feel like we'll probably have a lot of content coming out, building with the SDK, and so super excited to see that coming out soon.
Yeah. We need to get Scott Hanselman playing with it. If anyone hasn't heard of Scott Hanselman, he's the world's okayest programmer, as he describes himself. But he's VP of Developer Communities at Microsoft, huge .NET nerd. Used to do a lot of .NET stuff. Now he's come more into developer communities. But we need to get Scott Hanselman using the C# SDK.
Perfect. I know like we are a bit over time, but we just wanted to cover a few additional updates. So I'll be very efficient with that time. And of course, if there are any other questions that are there by the community, please do share those in the YouTube chat, or if you're joining in from other platforms as well. So of course, one of the other things that we have recently been very active with, we brought it up, was the NewVim plugin. So the NewVim plugin, again, built by our integrations intern, Bishoy, who just loves to ship things. I have the tendency to stay awake till late. He is probably staying awake till later and shipping out projects after project. So he's helped build the entire Sublime plugin, the NewVim plugin, and it is completely open source. In fact, he just also released an entire series on YouTube, and I'll make sure to also share the entire playlist on how you can get started with NewVim. So if you are one of those developers, unfortunately, I don't prefer to use a lot of CLI based tooling. I'm still kind of a GUI nerd, if that's the right way to say it. But I've just shared the entire plugin playlists for NewVim. So we have a lot of great functionality, such as being able to interact with your Copilot chats, being able to save and edit your assets, being able to connect to your pieces cloud, and also being able to log in and log out of your pieces account. And there are a lot of great feedback that we've already gotten for the entire plugin. In fact, like we are right now, as if we are speaking, Bishwa is actively working on getting the Copilot interface, like improving that as well, because recently there has been a lot of great plugins that are coming out for NeoVim plugin community. And in fact, like when I actually went to the sub community for NeoVim, to the unofficial Discord, the community is really active on Reddit and also on the unofficial Discord. And as soon as I shared the plugin, everyone literally in the matter of minutes time, and I'm not joking here, like they were there to actually provide feedback about the plugin and how users are using it. So we have had a lot of users already on our Discord who are proactively using the NeoVim plugin. So if you are one of the NeoVim users, please do check it out and do share your feedback about the plugin. And if you're, of course, willing to contribute to it, it's completely open source. It's written in Python. So feel free to make some contributions to the official GitHub repo that Jim is showing right now on the board. And Jim, if you want to probably share something about anything else about that.
I've never used NeoVim in my life, so I'm one of those people that if I ever get into Vi or Vim, I reboot my computer to get out of it, because yeah, I can't do that. So I should probably learn.
I mean, I'll be honest, like as I was kind of preparing the documentation for this, there's definitely learning curve involved. And of course, like Pieces is great for helping me kind of get started with just understanding the installation steps of how you install a plugin, because of course you don't have a GUI in order to help you install the different extensions. So I mean, Pieces is perfect whenever you want to learn anything, whether it's just how to install a plugin instead of NeoVim. It will give you the exact steps, and it worked right in the first step itself. So yeah, one thing, like I think like one of the just the annoying things, especially if you're not used to using a Vim or NeoVim kind of plugins, the only kind of frustrating thing can be that you need to be pretty proficient with all of the dependencies that you have to install. So for instance, like when since the NeoVim plugin for Pieces is actually Python based, so you need to have the specific plugin package, like Python package for running Python based NeoVim plugins. But we have documented everything inside of our documentation. And I think like one of the other kind of tricky parts about like managing NeoVim is that there are so many different kind of package managers. So the one that we have documented is Vimplug, but we've already had a couple of folks in the community on Discord share that they use a different type of package manager. So the ability to actually handle them, because you can either configure your NeoVim either with Vim or with Lua. So different plugin managers inside of NeoVim either use Vim or they use Lua, and the configuration that you have to set up for them is entirely different. So that's like the kind of tricky part when it comes to NeoVim. It's a very active community. Most of the developers know what they're doing, but it's also then equally kind of rewarding to have so many developers try it out. So yeah, definitely excited for more people to give feedback to us about the plugin.
Cool. So yes, if you're a NeoVim person, give it a try. See how it's going.
Yeah.
And then, yes, if you're interested in NeoVim, this is how you quit out. So I know that's the joke about no one can work out how to get out. It's there you go. Yeah. Pieces helps me. How do I quit out? Q bang.
Exactly.
Cool. I'm going to step back to this comment here, diving back to C#. Earlier this year, the NSA's cybersecurity briefing also lists C# as a language considered safe in terms of memory management. Yes. So I don't know if anyone saw that, but there was buffer underruns, buffer overflows, and all these different memory issues are a great way for hackers to hack systems. So the NSA gave a list of languages that they believed are memory safe, so they're much better choices for people to use, which is surprising. I would have thought the NSA would want us to use the most unsafe languages possible so they could hack us. Tinfoil hat time. But yeah, C# is got very good memory safety. So it's a garbage collected language, which obviously means you have the downside of if the garbage collector has to run, there's potential for a slowdown, but that means it's memory safe. So garbage collector is actually very, very good. I've never noticed a big slowdown. Not like Java certainly used to be terrible, especially on big server-side projects. You would get, multiple hundreds of milliseconds of slowdown for the garbage collector to run, which doesn't work on a trading system where you can't wait that long. But C# has been pretty useful for that. So yeah, C# is recommended by the NSA, one of a number of languages recommended by the NSA. Oh, and just randomly, there you go. My local model download has just succeeded. So my C# app that was running, where are we? It's finally downloaded that model that we kicked off earlier. And then you'll see, what LLM are you? No answer. Llama doesn't like to tell us.
No answer.
Cool. Okay. Anything else we're going to be talking about?
Yeah, because I didn't know personally that we could actually download the local models from the SDK. So, I mean, that's a new thing for me to also learn. Because, of course, like the only part of the models API that I've explored is how do you list your models, how do you change your models. So that's a really cool thing that we can manage with the SDK as well.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful because if you want to access a model that's just not there, then just having better go, yep, just download this, and then you've got it. It's very powerful. Otherwise, you have to zip back into Pieces Desktop, put down the model. So here's an article on ZDNet about the same thing. That's the NSA thing. So yeah, NSA advises organizations to consider making a strategic shift from programming languages that provide little or no inherent memory protection, such as C and C++, to memory-safe languages where possible. Some examples, memory-safe languages are C#, Go, Ruby, Java, Ruby, and Swift, the NSA said. So there we go. The spy agency cites recent research from Google and Microsoft that 70% of the security issues, respectively in Chrome and Windows, were memory-related, and many of them were a result of using C and C++. Prone to memory-based vulnerabilities. Yes. Now, I know the C++ nerds will say, oh, we've got all the new smart pointers. It's so much better now. I was like, yes, it is, but it's not built in. You can still do dumb things. Whereas in languages like C#, you have to go out of your way to do dumb things. You can access memory, you can use raw memory, but you have to be very explicit and mark it as unsafe and all this kind of stuff. Whereas C and C++, we all learn how to do malloc and delete right from the start, and that is a very, very bad thing to do. So there's a lot of C and C++ code that needs to be updated, and a lot of C and C++ developers don't know about the new smart pointers. So yes, you can be very safe. If you want to learn more about C++ and being safe, I highly recommend, there's someone on Twitter who goes by Tartan Llama. Highly recommend following them. Cy Brand, program manager for C++ at Microsoft. Absolutely awesome person. So if you are interested in C++ and how to be safe with it, highly recommend you follow Cy Brand and check out a lot of their videos. But otherwise, yes, C# for the win.
Yep. And I feel like, would you probably say that the way that garbage collection in just what I understand is that it is somewhat similar to how it's handled in Java, because coming from a non-C# developer point of view, I feel like the programming paradigms when it comes to comparing the garbage collection and how it handles in Java versus C#, it's somewhat similar.
I mean, I know the basic principle is similar, that it is garbage collected. I don't actually know the implementation of the Java one. How does Java garbage collection compare to C#? Because C# has a whole lot of different lifetimes. So you've got, you end up things that are going into Gen 1, Gen 2, and then long-lived garbage collection. And so it does a lot more cleanups in Gen 1, then less on Gen 2, then Gen 3, the long-term one less often. There's got large object pools. I have no idea how the Java one is implemented. But here we go. So Java garbage collection has got serial, parallel, current mark street, garbage first. Okay, so a few different collector types. Got a generational approach, young, old, and permanent. And tuning. C#, you've got workstation server and background, you've got Gen 0, Gen 1, Gen 2, yeah, with promotion, less tuning options. So yeah, basically same but different. Java's got a lot more tuning. C# has less tuning. Certainly my experience of both is the Java garbage collector on massive projects, when it goes, and it can take a long time. So there was a whole lot of things being done in the banking sector to not garbage collect, to literally avoid the garbage collection as much as is humanly possible. Because if you've got a trading system, you can't have that backend be down for 500 milliseconds while it's running a garbage collection. That's just not acceptable. And there was one of the workarounds I actually heard about was they had these Java servers with massive amounts of memory in it, and they turned off garbage collection, and they put a load balancer in front of it. And what it would do is, as the memory started to run out on the machine, they would literally kill the entire process, flip the load balancers to another machine, and restart the process. So it's faster to not have any garbage collection at all and just throw more hardware at the problem and just flip between load balancers than it was to actually deal with the Java garbage collection. So kind of a few interesting ways they've solved the natural slowdown from Java garbage collection. Certainly in my experience, the C# one doesn't have the same long slowdown. It collects more often. But I haven't tuned Java, and this is a few years old experience. So any Java folks who are watching want to teach me something different, please do. Please do. I'd love to learn more.
Absolutely. No, I mean, thanks for sharing, because of course, like the scale of Java applications that I worked during my internships definitely didn't ever cause an issue for too much of the data for it to be garbage collected. But I assume that at scale, it's definitely an issue. So thanks for sharing that. But I know probably a couple of last final updates that we want to quickly share are and these are more kind of focused on just giving shout outs to our community. So Sambhav, we had him featured in the last session. Of course, he has been continuing to do great work, especially with writing a lot of the different test cases for our Rapid SDK for Python. And one of the community projects that we are collaborating right now, we did basically tease this a bit in the last session, was building an integration with LangChain. So for those folks who are not aware of what LangChain is, it's a framework. I think, Jim, we didn't really have I think we had a session with Rishabh, but it was not on LangChain, right? It was on, if I'm not mistaken, it was on something else with Rishabh. It was on Twilio. Yeah. So Rishabh from Twilio, he shared on how to use Twilio APIs with pieces. But yeah, I mean, with LangChain, the idea is that it's an open source framework that allows you to build Gen AI and RAG applications very easily, because it provides you a set of methods, and it provides a lot of connections with most of the common vector databases and large language model providers, whether it's OpenAI or Gemini or even like Grok. But of course, since you can think of pieces as an LLM provider as well, although like, of course, we are using other LLMs ourselves, and we allow you to very easily interface with them. But of course, with the unique twist of all of the optimizations that we make with pieces. Similar to like Olama, which is essentially, again, an open source project that allows you to pull any large language model, open source large language model, and then run it. So what we have done is we have created a GitHub URL. Right now, it's still under a PR, so it's not quite merged yet. But we are awaiting for we are awaiting for the review for the pull requests for LangChain to add pieces as an LLM provider. And for what does that mean for the end developer is that now any application which uses LangChain, or if you're building a RAG-based application, you can choose pieces as your LLM of choice. So by the way, it's not merged in right now, Jim. The pull request is open. So this is
just trying
opened
to
up
find
by
it.
someone. Yeah. So the basic idea is that if anyone over here is trying to essentially build an LLM provider, right? Most of the LLM providers, what they follow is what we call as an open AI spec. So because of course OpenAI with their GPT APIs, they're like the golden standard when it comes to like interfacing LLMs with any application. So you have to typically follow a set of methods, including like being able to choose which model you're using. Then you'll typically define certain functions, such as being able to stream your response, being able to stream your response in an async fashion. So we have created this PR right now, which is we are hoping to get it reviewed. So the entire LangChain team had a code freeze for their new version, so they had like stopped reviewing for the community PRs for most of the community integrations that had been raised. So hopefully this should get reviewed next week. But once we'll have this merged into the community LLMs, if you're using LangChain for any application, you can use Pieces as your default LLM provider. And this just opens up the ecosystem for being able to integrate your Pieces SDK and use Pieces for any type of RAG based application, which is a great thing, because this unlocks because LangChain is like the most popular framework for building Gen AI applications. So this helps unlock Pieces to a much larger community of developers and being able to interface with it, similar to how Olama has been able to do. So Olama is also like, a really famous project, but one of the biggest limitations with Olama is that it's just a framework for being able to run large language models. But of course, Pieces, we have inbuilt Copilot capabilities, chat capabilities, which offer a lot more effortless way of being able to like generate contextualized applications, which Olama kind of lacks. So yeah, super excited for this community integration. And with this, like following this structure, we are now looking at also something like contingent.dev. So that's like one of the other open source projects which allows you to like get autocomplete functionality directly inside of VS Code. So we are also exploring adding integration for contingent.dev, which is an open source project, which again has a plugin ecosystem for different LLMs. So we're looking at this. This is written in TypeScript. So if there's any developer would love for you to explore this, we have our TypeScript SDK, so it will marry very well. And right now we don't have an inbuilt autocomplete functionality. Of course, within our VS Code extension, a lot of developers ask us for autocomplete. So this might be a great way for you to be able to plug in and get that autocomplete powered by Pieces with live context or with our SDKs. So, I mean, a lot of exciting open source integration projects that are being thought about. I know, like, Mason is going fully into the entire open source ecosystem, looking for different kind of extensions. So if anyone is interested in building an extension of your own choice with our SDKs, feel free to, look at these kind of projects and let us know if you're interested in them.
Cool.
Yeah, I think those are all of the major topics that we want to cover. Jim, I know we are probably 20 minutes over time, but if you wanted to cover anything else, we're really looking forward to this.
No, I think that's a lot. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. A lot of pieces moving around. So yeah, no, it's really cool. And just obviously, anyone who's watching, if you want to get involved, please do. This is a great way to get some open source projects under your belt. A great way to dabble in some things which are pretty cool. AI is the new hotness. So anything you're doing with Pieces and open source is always going to look good for you. So yeah, do it. Just get involved. When we're here to help, jump on our Discord if you have questions.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much, Jim, for taking out your time, especially super early in the morning. But yes, a lot of interesting conversations, and I think like this was perhaps the most demo-heavy live stream that we have had in a while. So hopefully, like we can get some good clips out of this, especially for our C#, for our Sublime, for our Rapid SDK, and just share that across with the community of .NET and C# developers. Super excited to see how that grows.
Yeah. Just for folks watching, if any of you got any cool open source stuff with Pieces you want to show off, you want to join one of these, just reach out, let us know. Reach out on Discord. We'd love to kind of highlight your work and show what you're doing. We often have folks join us, so you want to get involved, please do. Yeah, would love to host you on the stream.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Cool. All right. Thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah. Great. So